So, welcome to this week's episode of the UFO Show on the Area 51 Sports Network, brought to you by Bet99 Sportsbook. Once again, if you do go to our website, area51sportsnetwork.com, go to the betting page on initial deposit. If you deposit, you get up to $600 off of your initial deposit. So, make sure to check that out, bet99.com, where you can find all your betting and sports needs. So, Andy, let's jump in here. We're in the heart of the summer, so there's only really two things going on. We got the Olympics and we got some baseball. So, why don't we jump into a little bit of baseball today? How I know there was a major trade that went down with the Padres and Max Scherzer. So, do you think that this trade is going to have any effect on the Padres maybe winning the division, and if people should take a flyer on the Padres to pass the Dodgers in the division for on a betting standpoint?
Well, we should clarify first that the trade is not official yet, so I'm still trying to look. I feel like I've been refreshing Ken Rosenthal's tweets every 5 seconds, but in general, yeah, if Padres can get Max Scherzer, I mean, he's probably still a top 10 pitcher in the game. However, I'm seeing here now from Rosenthal, he said Dodgers are still in on Scherzer as of 46 seconds ago. So it's tough, right? Because if the Dodgers get Scherzer, I think they become the favorite. If the Padres get Scherzer and don't have to give up any roster players, they're probably the favorite. And lurking in the weeds is the San Francisco Giants too, right? So to answer your question, I think, yeah, if the Padres can get Scherzer, I would definitely put some money on them. Padres are already probably one of, if not the best team in the league. So adding another ace can't hurt their chances.
So there is an interesting outright bet on bet99.com right now, and they are projecting the Cy Young Award winners. Now, I think it's pretty safe to say that Jacob deGrom is going to win the NL Cy Young. Do you believe that's fair?
Oh, yeah, that's his for sure.
So we'll move over to the AL. The AL is very close. They got three guys that are very close in the betting world. You got Lance Lynn at plus 106. You got Garrett Cole plus 142, and then Carlos Rodon at plus 285. Which of those three pitchers are you taking to win the AL Cy Young?
Probably Lance Lynn right now. I mean, the White Sox I think they're still the best team in the AL. I think they're still a game ahead. Typically how these awards work, much like hockey or football, if you're the best player on the best team, you often end up winning. So I'd probably go with Lance Lynn.
Yeah, and for all of you Blue Jays fans out there, there is a Blue Jay on the list for the AL, and it is Robbie Ray, but those odds are very high. He has a plus 2,700 payout to win the AL Cy Young.
Yeah, I don't know if Robbie Ray would be the best choice. Although speaking of Max Scherzer, I am seeing some rumors that the Blue Jays are in on Scherzer and Jose Berrios. Scherzer doesn't really make sense to me for the Blue Jays just because he is a pending free agent. He's going to cost a lot of prospects. I don't think the Blue Jays are at that level where, if they add Scherzer, they can win the World Series anyways. But Jose Berrios makes a lot of sense for the Blue Jays. And I guess we might as well talk Blue Jays now that we're on the Blue Jays. Tonight is supposed to be their first game back in Toronto. Close to 2 years, I think. Like the last time they played there would have been September 2019. So in terms of a bet against the Red Sox, they're plus 105. I would absolutely hammer that. I think I'm going to put down $50, $100, $200 in the Blue Jays to win at home, their first game at home. This is basically about as close to a lock as you can. So again, that's Blue Jays at home plus 105 back at Rogers Center.
So the pitching matchup is Ryu versus Rodriguez today. And yeah, that's interesting. You think that Blue Jays would have all the momentum, but the Red Sox are the favorites according to the betting world.
Yeah, I mean, the Red Sox are a really good team, right? Like the Blue Jays, I think, are still third in the division. I haven't checked the standings in a few days, but they're right there at the Yankees, and the Red Sox are like 7 games ahead. So Red Sox are the better team, but I would be all over the Blue Jays in this one, that's for sure.
So before we look at some other baseball, we do have some Canadian content in the Olympics, and bet99.com does allow you to bet on the Olympics. So at about 7 p.m. tonight, it's the women's 100 meters swimming is going to be happening. Now, Penny Alexiak, who is Canadian from Ontario, she won it in the last Olympics. She's plus 1,400. Now she's already won a bronze. We already saw her in her incredible silver medal swim. Do you take those odds that Penny Alexiak is going to double up, even though that the odds might tell you no?
Yeah, I mean, I would. I don't know anything about Olympic swimming, but I think anytime you can get a number one, a swimmer with the resume of Penny Alexiak, and then number two, the Canadian factor, I would be taking them. What about you?
Oh, well, of course, like you have to take her in this case. And then in the 4x100 women's medley race, Canada is a plus 800 to win. So right now they're projected to win the bronze medal. Yes, bronze medal. So they have the third best odds. I'm not sure about the exact swim team, but I think that might be another one where you could win some money if you put some money down on the Canadians to take that. And that's tomorrow morning I think it's tomorrow morning at 4:57 a.m. If I'm reading this correct.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think we're both in the same boat. We don't know a ton about Olympic swimming, but I was watching the Olympics the other day in Alexiak. I think it was it's 50 meters there and back. So each person, so it would have been the 400 meter, some sort of a relay, and Alexiak came from like fifth and ended up winning. I think they got silver in the race. She absolutely dominated her portion of it.
Yeah, so that's the big one. That's the one that everybody has been talking about. She started off in fourth when she entered the pool, and she pulled out a silver for Canada, and it was beyond incredible to watch.
Yeah, it was a good race.
Sticking with the Olympics, there is some baseball, and right now, we'll talk about one quick game, and it's the Dominican Republic Olympic team versus the Mexican Olympic team. So right now, the Dominican is plus 101, and Mexico is minus 145. The Dominican, one of their players is known to Blue Jays fan in Jose Bautista. So do you think that we've heard so much about the Dominican Republic and how strong they are of a country in baseball? So is that a country that you're maybe looking out for and that you might want to take these odds on to beat Mexico in tonight's game?
Yeah, I would take the Dominican. I mean, like you said, they have Bautista. They have a few other, I don't want to say retired, but definitely, older, former top MLB players. Thing about Olympic baseball, it's kind of different from like World Cup soccer or, Olympic hockey, that kind of thing, right? Where the MLB season's still going on, right? So all the players at the Olympics are either playing in the Dominican League, the Mexican League, or in the minor leagues in the United States. So you're not going to see, the absolute best players, right? You're not going to see, Mike Trout in center field for the U.S. team, right? So makes predicting these games a little bit tougher, but Dominican is probably one of the top 2 or 3 baseball countries in the world. So anytime you can get plus odds in the Dominican, I think that's a good bet.
And right now, when we look at the outright odds for baseball in the Olympics, they have Japan at minus 118 and the U.S. at plus 350, followed by Korea at plus 440. Now, I think one of the reasons the U.S. is a very strong team, but I think it's more like the Japanese team at the Olympics. They're big stars who play in the Japanese baseball league are actually on the team, while the Americans, the Dominicans, all of these other countries, including Canada, who unfortunately didn't make it this time, a lot of their star players are in the MLB, so they won't be available.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I were to pick, I would number one be on Japan. Number two, I really like Korea. Much similar, like you said, with Japan. Korea has its own domestic baseball league. And, if you look at the MLB, there's not a ton of Korean or Japanese players. I mean, there's a few, right? But there's not a ton. So I think that gives the advantage to Japan and Korea. United States is sending a lot of college guys, a lot of older sort of retired players, or, again, they play in the Dominican League, as well as a lot of lower minor league players. So in terms of the competitive standpoint, I would have to give Japan and Korea the edge there.
So as we've talked about on bet99.com, they do have boosted odds. So the Penny Alexiak win at the 100 meters, it was 1,400. Now it's actually at 1,500. So if you put down maximum $50, those odds have actually been boosted already. So somebody has faith in Penny Alexiak, definitely, from bet99.com. But let's jump over to baseball, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about the MLB or NBA draft.
Sure.
So I know last we had a lot of people in baseball. We're talking about divisions now, basically. Who's going to win which division? So are we still set on the Houston Astros winning the AL West? I think after they did their big trade with Seattle, now they're at plus or minus 1,430. Oakland's at plus 600 and Seattle's at plus 2,300. Are we still confident that the Houston Astros are going to run away with the division?
I think so. I'm just pulling up their standings here. I'm not familiar with where they are, but those odds tell me they're probably pretty far out ahead of Oakland. I mean, we're less than 24 hours now from the trade deadline, and Oakland hasn't really made a move to get anything. Seattle, they got a reliever, they sent away a reliever. They're kind of still sort of static. So to answer your question, yeah, I would still be on Houston on that for sure.
Yeah, I know that, Seattle did pull up some trades with Houston, which is kind of a big no-no. Like, you don't trade within the division, especially if you're Seattle and Houston. And they traded off, I think it was Kendall Graveman, and the reaction from the bullpen and the clubhouse was, what are you doing? You're basically telling us that as owners, you don't have faith in us anymore if you're trading away one of our top relievers.
Yeah, that was a puzzling trade. I mean, you look at the standings, the Seattle's only 2 games out of the wild card, right? So it's not like they're a typical sell team like Kansas City or Baltimore or Minnesota would be, right? They're still in the race. So that trade was very confusing for me. I guess they felt they could replace Graveman internally. I know they do have a strong bullpen, but yeah, definitely not the, let's say not the most straightforward, clear, logical trade. Maybe we should best put it.
So I'll throw out one odd about the Gold Cup, and then maybe Sean will come in and we can talk a little bit about the NBA draft tonight. But there is the Gold Cup action tonight, 7 p.m., Mexico, Canada. Mexico is at minus 179. Canada's at plus 580. I think that they're maybe disrespecting Canada a little bit here. They've shown that they can compete in this Gold Cup, but plus 580 basically tells me that they don't see any possibility of Canada coming and winning this game.
Yeah. I haven't been following the Gold Cup too much. I know Alphonso Davies is not playing for Canada. That's probably factoring into these odds big time. I mean, he's one of the, top 10, 15 footballers in the world, and he's on the bench. Mexico historically has dominated this matchup. It sucks to say, but I would be sticking with Mexico until Canada can consistently win these big games. I don't feel comfortable betting on them. How about yourself?
Who does Andy like on the diamond tonight? Asking Ace. I think that I think Canada has a chance, but I don't know if they're going to win. I hope that they do.
And there's Sean.
Hey, fellas, how's it going?
Doing well, thank you.
So, Sean, we wanted to ask if you would come on because obviously the NBA draft is on tonight, and Bet99.com does have some odds about the draft. So why don't we throw out some names for you about, and then you can tell us if it's a good bet or not.
Sure, yeah. As far as like who gets drafted where, I've been kind of eyeing up the top 4 because as a Raptors fan, that's obviously impactful. It looks like 100% that Cunningham will go to the Pistons, go number 1. Then after that, Woj was talking about how it looks like Jalen Green probably 2nd overall, Evan Mobley 3rd. Then from there, it kind of opens up a little bit, but I would probably go Suggs for the Raptors. I think that's probably where they're going to go on that pick. So if there's an odd available for Jalen Suggs going to Toronto, I think that's a pretty good bet.
There is. It's minus 1,000. So odds makers tend to agree with you, Sean. I guess my question would be like minus 1,000 isn't really that good return, right? I mean, you're putting down $1,000 to win 100.
Yeah.
Is there a chance that Suggs could go higher?
I mean, I would love it if he did, because that means that potentially Mobley would be there for the Raptors, and he would be the perfect fit out of those 4 for the Raps, because he brings that size to the center court. Man, I'm still hoping that somehow, some way Mobley is there, but I don't think so. It seems to me that Suggs would be like the consensus guy there.
So the second best bets for the Raptors at 4, if it is the Raptors you're picking, because there's been some talk about how they might trade, is Scotty Barnes at plus 400.
Yeah. I'd be pretty disappointed if they go Scotty Barnes there. I suppose they could, but Suggs just looks like he's such a much more dynamic player that I'd be really shocked if they went that far off of that. To me, they're walking home with one of those 4 guys that I mentioned. And Cunningham's for sure going number 1. Yeah, I've got Ace agrees with me here. Oops, popped it off again. That Suggs over Barnes. So I would say one of those 4 guys will for sure be a Raptor. You could potentially put down a little bit of money that Mobley would be there, or Jalen Green, but
so Mobley's at plus 2,000 and Jalen Green's at plus 7,900.
Yeah, so they're also projected to be 2 and 3 pretty much with a bullet. So
the top 3 for Rookie of the Year, I know it's very far out, but we got Cade Cunningham at plus 250, Jalen Green at plus 310, Evan Mobley at plus 370, and then you have a tie between Scotty Barnes and Jalen Suggs at plus 540. So are there any of those that you're confident, just based off of their skill set and what team they're going on, that you maybe somebody puts down a little bit of money tonight?
If you want to be really bold, I feel like Suggs is actually probably a decent bet. Just purely because he's going into a really good situation, right? Like you look at this, and Ace has got the odds here, 550 for Suggs. Yeah. So
plus 540.
Plus 540. Perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he's going into a really good situation. It's been a rough year for the Raptors. They were playing out of Tampa Bay. There was the COVID issues. They had injury issues, but otherwise they're a really good team. They're still very much the same core that won in 2019 that was really young at the time and is still young and developing. Kyle Lowry rather, may or may not be a Raptor at the end of this offseason, but Suggs coming in and to a really good spot where he doesn't have to be the guy. Like I think about Cunningham going to the Pistons. There's not a lot of support there or help there. Out of all of those situations in the top 4, I really, really like the one for the Raptors. So being able to grab a top 4 player in this draft and adding it to that core is pretty phenomenal. They're in a really good spot.
And then the last future bet we'll ask you about. Right now, they have some MVP votes out there, or MVP odds. So we got Luka at plus 400, Joel Embiid at plus 700, which I wonder if that changes depending on this Ben Simmons trade, if it actually does happen or not, which it looks like it will. Kevin Durant at plus 700, Giannis at plus 780, and Steph Curry at plus 780. So based on how the teams are built now, because we can't really project what teams are going to look like unless you're considering the LA Lakers who recently traded for Russell Westbrook today. So do any of those names interest you or pique your interest when it comes to betting for MVP before the season starts?
To be honest, the one that really pops out to me, and Bowman will love this, is Embiid. And that's because I genuinely think that the 76ers are going to find a way to land Damian Lillard this year. And if they land Damian Lillard this offseason, the 76ers are very much for real. I do expect Simmons to be gone tonight. Whether he's potentially part of a Damian Lillard package, I don't know. I don't think that makes much sense. But maybe he is traded for assets that could be then flipped for Damian. Simmons doesn't make much sense for Portland, but I could really see Lillard and Embiid kind of forming a partnership in Philly. And it's hard to vote against Giannis, though, right? Like, you watch what Giannis did in the finals and through the playoffs, and it's just ridiculous. So, but out of those names, I like Embiid for a bet because I feel like Giannis is almost a cop-out answer.
But I feel like it's harder to win an MVP when you have that, like when you have those additional stars attached to you. Like, for example, LeBron James, even if he has a great season, he might not win. He might not be considered for the MVP because people say, well, he has Anthony Davis and he has Russell Westbrook to help him. That's why that Giannis one and that Luka one are very intriguing because they don't have that secondary star. Yeah, Luka has Porzingis, but it's Porzingis.
Way lesser. Yeah.
Giannis has Middleton, who showed up this year but has not been consistent over the years. So that's why I think that those two bets might play more favorably than a guy like Kevin Durant, who has Kyrie Irving and James Harden and Blake Griffin potentially and like, so when it's one player that they can focus on, I think it helps when it comes to betting on MVPs. But then again,
they have to have that success too, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that makes me like the Embiid option in this is that right now so much of Philly's game plan offensively centers around Embiid, right? Simmons is pretty much a pure passer. We've seen that to a fault. They've got some outside shooting with Seth Curry, but Damian Lillard would spread the floor and force teams to decide whether to double team Dame or whether to double team Embiid. And I think that would cause mismatches on the defensive side, potentially opening Embiid up to really dominate. So if all of a sudden Lillard's in Philly and Embiid's freed up and starting to really break through on both sides of the floor for Philly, I think people will take a second look at that and say, look at what Embiid has become and that he's propelling the 76ers forward. All because now he has somebody that he can defer off to. Lillard makes so much sense for the 76ers. I really kind of hope it happens for them. I think it would really help Seth Curry and all those guys as well, because it gives them alternative shooting options on the perimeter that defenses would then have to focus on. I really like the Embiid option there, actually.
So can you answer this quick question to me? How has Lillard never been really considered for the MVP?
It's that success. Well, nothing happens in Portland, unfortunately, right? Like he should be because what he's done in Portland with little to no help, is phenomenal. Like he's so clutch in the playoffs. It's phenomenal. Him hitting 3-pointers from the logo in clutch moments of the game. Like there's nothing that I would say Lillard can really not do to propel his team forward and to put his team in a position to succeed. That's everything that you want in an MVP. But until Portland or whatever team that Lillard's on has any sort of real success, I think people are just going to continue to overlook Portland, A, because it's a smaller market, and B, because they just simply don't have the success.
Yeah, and then on top of that, like Lillard, it just seems like he shows up in the big moments, but those aren't necessarily regular season where the voting is taking place. You know, he'll show up and he'll hit a huge shot over Paul George in the playoffs at the last second, or he'll put on a show where he pushes his team to triple overtime by hitting just daggers every time. But it's just those don't happen in the regular season, so I feel like he doesn't get the appreciation because of that.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it too, because in he's so clutch. He comes up in those big moments, but in the regular season, that's where everybody's judging for MVP, right? So you're watching Giannis do what Giannis has done on both sides of the floor. You're watching Steph Curry set records for 3-pointers. You're watching a lot of really stiff competition that's been so dominant the last while that I think it's hard for anybody to stand out. You have like James Harden and setting records for triple doubles. Like, to stand out is really, really tough in the regular season as an MVP over those guys who are breaking NBA records. But, I think Lillard deserves to be in those conversations for sure.
Yeah, so just for context, Lillard's at plus 1,100 for the MVP race, and then your favorite player, Trae Young, plus 1,800.
Yeah, poor Traby. Yeah.
Eddie,
Actually, Lillard's a good bet too, because if he ends up in Philly and ends up making a huge difference, really him or Embiid are really good options. Lillard could also end up in New York with the Knicks and be their star point in the really the biggest market in the league. So if he makes a huge difference on a good Knicks team, I can see him getting some MVP nods too.
Andy, do you have any final thoughts on the MVP or any of the draft stuff going down?
Not really. I'm curious to see where Moses Moody goes. I think he's over under 10.5. To me, I think he's probably a top 10 pick. So I'd be jumping on Moses Moody to be in the top 10. But other than that, not too much on NBA. You two know much more about basketball than I do. So defer to you two.
So Andy,
I'm excited for the draft. It'll be awesome.
Andy, why don't you talk a little bit about baseball, and then we'll wrap it up for the week.
Sure, yeah. So I think it was Ace asked us who I like tonight. Ace, I'm not sure if you heard, but I am all over Toronto at home versus Boston. We return to Rogers Center. I'm jumping all over the Blue Jays right now. I see their money line is at minus 250. So hopefully
they're up 3-0 early.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hope you jumped on it 15 minutes ago when I told you to, and they were plus, I think it was 104. But I'd be all over the Blue Jays, as well as I'm looking at the I just lost my page here. Sorry. I was looking at the Tigers game. I know it's rare to bet on the Tigers, but Tigers-Orioles, again, Tigers up 2-0 on the road early. Not a great payout, minus 334. But Casey Mize, recent first overall pick, playing for the Tigers, pitching, had a decent pro career so far. Orioles suck. I'd be on the Tigers. And then before we wrap up, our boosted odd of the week is going to be Sunday Night Baseball. It's going to be Tampa Bay Rays versus Boston Red Sox. We mentioned earlier, Red Sox are leading their division. Rays are right there in second place. Huge game for both teams. Not often that the Rays get primetime baseball during the regular season, so I would be jumping on the Tampa Bay Rays. Again, that boosted odd is going to come out probably Saturday night, Sunday morning, but do keep an eye out for that and make sure you use our link so that you can access that boosted odd to get the Rays with a little extra boost and juice behind them.
Yeah, that's weird. You know, the Rays are a good team, but they just seem to be disrespected because they play this boring style of baseball that MLB just doesn't see as prime time Sunday night baseball, even though they play teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox in the same division.
Yeah, it's very, very strange because, like you said, you know, they're usually a decent team. They do play the big market teams like Boston, New York. But yeah, for whatever reason, kind of reminds me of when the Canucks and Flames played afternoon hockey before the playoffs started. The league kind of brushes them under the rug and tries to hide them as much as they can.
Yeah, well, we're not going to talk about those end of season games because they basically didn't count. They just they just changed Vancouver's draw position. That's really it.
Exactly.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us this week on the UFO Show presented by Bet99 Sportsbook at bet99.com. Once again, if you head over to our website, area51sportsnetwork.com, head over to the betting page, you get $600 back on your initial deposit. Great deal. If you're a big Olympic fans, they have every single sport in there. I know the athletic competition is going to be starting up tomorrow. So if you're a big Andre DeGrasse fan, they have quite a few odds on him. Canada Relay Women, Canada Relay Men. And once again, we talked about it. There's a boosted odd for Penny Alexiak tonight if you put down for her 7 p.m. 100-meter race tonight. So that seems like a good bet to put down. So once again, for Andy, I'm Adam, and thank you for listening to this week's episode of the UFO Show.